45. Main house was a single large room with a fireplace against one wall and a wood burning stove at the other. One side of the room was full of cushioned chairs, tables, and lots of good reading lamps. There were bearskins on the floor and colorful weavings, baskets and drawings hanging in the walls. Aiden recognized a pencil sketch by Lieutenant Grufford, scenes from the wagon train. Around the great room, bookshelves were built in the walls. On the lower shelves are stacks of grade school primers for reading and arithmetic. On the high shelves are dozens of leather-bound books. Aiden saw his own books there all together in a row. Shakespeare, Mouse-Eaten Remains of Aesop's Fables, and of course the Atlas of the World. Sitting there on the raw wooden shelf, it looked tattered and ordinary, with a battered spine inches thick would repel any sensible child from ever taking it up. He reached out his hand to lift it, but found himself frozen, unable to even stroke the worn leather cover with a finger. He could not bear the rustle of the pages and their rich smell. He did not want to remember all the dark nights he and Maddie had read together, those awful lost nights when fear had been blunted by stories of the Congo, Iceland, and Rome. He shuddered and turned away. The children dragged tables and benches in the center of the room and carried in piles of enamel plates and cups. When the dinner was ready, Aiden and Tupik were seated across from Jackson and Salawi in the place of honored guests. Everyone spoke some English, or at least understood it. The conversations still often got tangled in translation, with much debate and laughter around the table. The seal meat didn't taste strange, but not so strange that it would pass it up if you were hungry. They were roasted carrots and some kind of pickled cabbage. There were baskets of flatbread and sourdough breads, every dish of fresh butter. It's not a proper feast, Salawi explained apologetically. They would have many special foods. A feast might have many days to prepare, but when the seals come and sea is good, the men hunt. Seal doesn't keep well, Jackson added. For one who doesn't like it much, he had put away quite a plateful. After dinner, the women put out bowls of dried berries and roasted nuts, and some of the men smoked pipes. Aiden felt dozy and warm and wanted nothing to do, just stay here forever in this peaceful and abundant place. Instead, he had to get up and he looked around for Francis. "Could you open the store for me?" Aiden asked. Francis looked nothing like his father upon first glance. But then he walked. Aiden could see an uncanny similarity in his posture and gestures. "There are a few things I need to buy for the trip home." "Yes, please come." Francis led him outside and around the corner of the porch, then unlocked the door. "What do you need?" "Well, some light rope might be useful, a new blanket, 2 pairs of socks, and a pistol. Box of cartridges, too, I guess. Oh, a couple of those kerchiefs." The moon was just starting to rise when Aiden met Tupik outside, holding the reins of 2 horses instead of 1. "This one is only to borrow," Tupik said. "Nothing a dulcetary brown mare. Jackson knows even desperate Nimipu would never buy a horse this poor. He says you could send it back to him when someone from your camp, wherever they travel this way. But this one is not too bad." He patted the neck of a sturdy black horse with 2 white spots and an eager gleam in his eye. "Not as good as your poorest horse, but I will not have shame to ride it." "Well, good," Aiden smiled. "That was a top concern of mine." He was glad both animals were dark and wondered as how much Jackson had guessed of his plans. They walked the horses out of the clearing onto the forest trail. "Where are we going?" Tupik asked. "North, along the coast." "Why at night?" "Because now we are bandits," Aiden said. He handed Tupik one of the kerchiefs and kicked his horse into a trot. Soon the lights of Jackson's compound disappeared and the night closed in around them with a soft chill. When the trail broadened, Tupik rode up beside him. "Talk to me now," he said firmly. "You are not my chief. What do you plan?" "There's a party of men out now, traveling with a large supply of the vaccine," Aiden explained. "They're bringing it to towns and settlements all over the region. That's why the police are suspicious of you and Silent Wolf. They thought there was an Indian plan to steal the vaccine." The brown mare shied as some branches smacked her nose. Aiden worked to pull her back. "The team only carries a few hundred doses of the vaccine at a time, so they cover one area, then return to Seattle for more," Aiden went on. "They left again just 2 days ago, going inland to logging camps." "How do you know all this?" "There were stories in the newspaper over the past month. I went to the newspaper office and read them again." "Well, how do you know they're going to be going now?" "Seattle isn't really much of a big city. Comers and goers are high interest. Yesterday's paper said they were headed north by boat to Everett. then inland to some logging camps. I know the first big logging camp near Everett is Alvin Tesler's. Some wispy clouds drifted over the moon and a cold wind blew. The boatman who brought me up to Jackson said it only takes one day with good wind and a sea from Seattle to Everett, Aiden went on. So if they take one day, which would be today, to vaccinate people in Everett, that puts them riding east tomorrow morning toward Tesler's camp. If we ride all night and get ahead of them, we can find a place to intercept them. Intercept, Tupik fingered his kerchief. You mean steal it? They just go back to Seattle and get some more. They have a whole farm of cows to make it. All they lose are a few days. Will this work? God's own toss, Aiden replied. But this has a better plan. I'm eager to hear it. How many men in the party? 3 or 4, Aiden said. Why don't we wait until night? Follow them and sneak into camp at night while they're sleeping. I don't reckon they'll be sleeping out, Aiden said. After Tesler's camp, they're only 5 miles to Grandview Camp. Besides, there's at least 100 men at Tesler's camp, another 50 or 60 at Grandview. They might use up all the vaccine they have. They rode on for a while, the only sound of the soft thud of horse hooves on the pine-needled path. I'll agree to the plan, Tupik said. 46. They rode on throughout the night. The trail was narrow but clear. Horses walked steadily. Aiden fell into a sort of trance with the motion. The moon misted and out of the clouds, and the air turned uncommonly cold. The sky was starting to lighten when they came to the river just south of Everett. Tupik found the eastward trail easily. It was a well-traveled path, which Aiden made Aiden even more nervous. A low ceiling of gray clouds muted the sunrise. They rode silently for about an hour, came to a rocky outcrop near the top of a ridge. For there they had a good view of the bend and the trail below, about 50 yards away. What do you think? Aiden asked. We can hide behind those boulders here and still see them coming from far away. How will they make them stop? Aiden pulled out a pistol out of his bag. You can't shoot them, Tupik said. Believe me, I don't plan on shooting anybody. But the sky and hoping for now, not even that. But as long as they don't know, we might pull it off. If it isn't, if they're getting robbed of their money, it'd be stupid to risk their own lives for something they can't get more of easy from a cow. All right, Tupik nodded. I will tie the horses back in the woods. Aiden settled into a place among the boulders and leaned against the cold stone. Wisps of fog rose up over the river and melted in the trees. What was he going to do here? This wasn't his fight, wasn't his cause, wasn't his people. He had done plenty enough already to satisfy any debt to Tupik. This could go bad in so many ways. He should just leave now and go home to camp and bear full life he had found there. He suddenly had no more time to contemplate his decision, for the first horse came into view on the trail below. They watched the second horse appear, then a third. Aiden squeezed his eyes shut and tried to steady himself. He thought he'd only have a little time to figure out a plan. You sneak around and come up behind them, Aiden whispered. I'll jump out, tell them to stop. Then you shout to them, don't turn around, so they don't see you, that you don't have a gun. His heart was pounding so loud he feared the 3 men could actually hear it. Keep your hat on and your face covered. Aiden pulled his kerchief over his face. They can't know you're Indian. Tupik nodded, then darted off silently into the woods. Aiden heard the sound of hooves and the snort of a horse. I don't have to do this. I can just let them ride past. He pressed himself back against the stone, took some deep breaths, and tried to steady his shaking hand. This isn't my cause. He heard the horse approaching, heard the voices of men. There must be some other way. The horses are so close he could smell them now. It's got to be someone else's cause. Stop right where you are! He sprang up and pointed the pistol at the 3 men. Put your hands up! 2 of the men shot their hands in the air, but the third just stared at him and slowly raised one hand. Don't turn around, Tupik shouted his line like a nervous actor in a bad play. Hands up! Aiden repeated, waving the pistol. Both hands! Sorry, the man said calmly. That hand doesn't go up. Aiden felt as if he had been stabbed through the cold steel. He knew that voice. It was the last voice he had ever expected to hear, and the last in the world he wanted to. The man's face was gaunt. He had a beard and long, ragged hair, but there was no mistake in his eyes. It was Doc Carlos. Wow! We have nothing to steal, the man in front said. All were carrying his medicine. I know what you're carrying, Aiden said. His knees were quivering so hard he thought they might buckle. He didn't know whether Carlos recognized him. Get off your horses, he said. Slow. I can see where your guns are, and you can see my finger on this trigger. He almost laughed, for it sounded like a silly line from a dime novel. He wrecked his mind around and tried to focus on the task at hand. Kneel down on the ground. Do what I say and you won't get hurt. It ain't any value to you, one of the men said. It's just vaccine. And men will pay for it, Aiden said, trying desperately to keep a clear head. They'll pay plenty up north at the gold mines. Tommy, he shouted. He hadn't thought to make up a white man's name for Tupic before. Tommy, get over here. Tupic appeared, bandana pulled high, hat pulled low, head ducked. Take those two and tie them up to some trees. Tupic got the rope and quickly procured the men. The other one comes with us. Aiden waved the gun at Carlos. He's our hostage. You can't just leave us, one of the men shouted. Someone will come along and find you before long. The trail looks busy enough. His kerchief now slipping, he could hardly breathe through it. Don't try to follow us. Don't send any law. If we smell a posse, we'll kill your friend dead. You understand? Tupic finished tying the first two men up and tucked their blankets around them. Get this one on his horse, Tommy. Tie his hands. Fetch the horses. His voice breaking. Hurry! Tupic helped the third man to his feet. But stopped in surprise when he saw who it was. Doc, is that? Go on now, Aiden said. Move! .47. They rode hard through the trees for 10 minutes. Then Aiden reined in his horse, slid out of the saddle, stumbled off behind a tree, and vomited his guts out. He waited to catch his breath, staring down at the dew ferns. Not glamorous, pederites, but very interesting. He wiped his mouth, then strode back.
I forgot you guys were doing that. Sorry.
He wiped his mouth and strode back, grabbed Carlos' jacket, yanked him off the horse, and smashed a fist into his face. Carlos fell to the ground. A gush of blood poured from his nose. Tupic jumped off his horse, grabbed Aiden, and pulled him back. What are you doing? Aiden lunged back, but Tupic held him. Carlos flinched in anticipation of another blow, but made no move to fight back. Stop, Tupic shouted. Are you crazy? He flung Aiden to the ground, but Aiden, well practiced by now in fighting, easily dragged Tupic down with him. They rolled together, grabbing and kicking in the slippery pine needles until Aiden abruptly stopped and shoved Tupic away. You are not my fight. He got to his feet. Tupic sprang up after him. Carlos is not your fight either. You let Maddie die. The accusation hung in the air like the burned smell of torn wood. The awful words finally out. The world was silent except for their hard breathing and the restless clink of a horse's bridle. Carlos slowed, sat up, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. What are you talking about? Tupic wiped his mouth on his sleeve. You said she drowned. Because you let her go. Aiden flung Tupic's restrained arm away and turned back to Carlos. It was you who should have drowned, he said bitterly. Yes, Carlos said. His voice was flat. If he was as shocked to see Aiden as Aiden was to see him, it didn't show on his face. If anything, he seemed inordinately calm. He looked almost as bad as the first time Aiden had seen him just weeks after release from the prison camp. He pulled his damaged arm into his lap but made no move to get up. This morning's sun streamed through the clouds in steamy strips of soft gray light. That is how you hurt your arm, Tupic said quietly. Carlos didn't answer. Hayden went back to his horse and grabbed the rest of the rope. We'll leave him here. He did not cause your sister's death. You weren't there. You don't know. Aiden could feel the awful panic rising. I don't know that no man can hold against fast water, Tupic said gently. Were you about to pull yourself free from the river when we found you? Aiden knew this was true, but almost known it was true. But he would not let it be true. If there was no fault, there could be no anger, and without anger, the space inside him could fill up with pain, which he could not bear. The pain of every death, the waiting on death, the raven's claw around his heart, the terrible burn on his palms from a shovel handle worn silkily smooth. You are wrong to blame him, Tupic went on. He's alive. Maddie's dead. The river still does not care. Aiden clutched the coiled rope. We did not leave a broken man tied in the woods far from the trail. We let him go free, and we take him with us. Fine, Aiden said with his hands in surrender. You do whatever the hell you want. I'm done my part. I'm through. He stumbled toward the brown mare and fumbled for the stirrup. You have the vaccine. You're on your own now. He mounted, yanked the animal's head around, and kicked hard.